Hola, Terrans. Bienvenido to the Mysterious CHIRP. This is Raven. Buckle up and prepare for takeoff.
Greetings, Terrans, and welcome to our first Between the Seasons interview for 2026. Luckily for you, today's guest is Nancy Scales Coddington, an award-winning science communicator, media producer, and STEM storyteller with more than 2 decades of experience helping audiences connect with science through curiosity, creativity, and narrative. A former PBS/NPR affiliate science journalist and founder of SciCime Solutions and STEM Socialite, her work blends science, storytelling, fashion, and media to make STEM more accessible and human-centered, or alien-centered if that's your thing. From wearable technology and STEM fashion to public media and space outreach, Nancy explores how imagination and storytelling shape the way we understand science and envision the future. She currently offers STEM education consulting, media production, and wearable tech workshops. That is to say, a perfect chirp. So, I have to ask, Nancy, in the deep, dark recesses of your childhood, how did you discover science fiction, or what did you discover? What made you interested in that intersection between fiction/storytelling and science, which is really what science fiction is?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on, Holly. I am delighted to be here. So thank you, and thank you to your listeners. So I think one of the first things that I remember when I was younger was watching TV, and this might not be a traditional sci-fi that your audience is, but do you remember that show that had the talking car? Its name was Kit, where the lights would go across.
100%.
From Knight Rider.
Yes. And, even though, of course, Knight Rider being kind of a name, but the car is so cool.
The car was the coolest. Like, as a kid, that just absolutely blew my mind that there was technology that not only this car could talk, but the car was like a problem-solving partner and had all these human capabilities. So it would not only, transport you, but it analyzed situations, it protected people, it made decisions. I mean, how insane is that? And so looking back, I mean, that really was something so beyond what we could think of. But today we have AI assistants, we have smart vehicles, we have navigation systems and sensors, and it's almost like that car has come alive in its own way, which is kind of wild. That's one of the things I really like about science fiction is eventually it works its way out of the fiction component to it.
Yes. I'm still waiting for the Batmobile where it covers itself when it needs to.
Yeah, right? Sign me up for that. I'd love to have one of those. But then one of the things is, right, you can't see it. And then how are you going to find it when you're in the parking lot? I have a hard enough time with a car I can see.
Yep, that's true. That's true. And what if Kit was like a real partner and they were like, no, I don't feel like working today.
I know, right? Like, wait a minute.
Bring me the good coffee. Bring me the good gas. Are we
going to the beach? Let's go, Kit.
I love that.
That could be a lot of fun.
That takes us right into your place in this exciting Venn diagram. So since you've worked in public media and science communication for so long, do you have an opinion about why storytelling is such a powerful way to help people connect with science? Do you think it has to do with something that has an emotional value, seems personal and makes it real? Or do you think it has to do with a way to be able to have a difficult conversation, or a way to present a more technical thing? Or what do you think?
Yes. to all of that. Well, we're wired for stories to communicate. I mean, that is one of the ways that we share information. Before we could certainly write things down, we drew them to communicate history or to find water or, where food sources were. And So while we're sharing that data, there's also that story component that goes to it that's really crucial. And that's how you remember things as well. Most people aren't walking around thinking, gosh, I can't wait to learn a scientific statistics today. That's a small group. They do exist, but people are curious. They're curious about their own lives, their human behavior, survival, the mystery of the world, and the unknown. So that storytelling gives science that emotional context. And I think one of the things that I've learned working in public media is that people remember how science made them feel long after they have forgotten whatever the technical details are, for organic chemistry, right? Like, did you take chemistry in school? So when you think back to chemistry, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
The song for the periodic table.
Right? Well, that's a great tool. And you remember.
Yeah. Yep. And other people, when I was little, my dad was a chemist, but he brought home all the different colored balls, like black was carbon and white was another element. And he would just provide the sticks, and I would just build things, and I'd be like, what is this? What is this? Like, inventing something, and he would be like, well, you left an empty space here, so it's nothing. Oh, okay.
Like, thanks for pooping on my parade.
Well, but that, later, I was 5, right? And then later I was like, oh.
It wasn't a benzene ring after all. But that was like connecting that awe, right? That awe, that curiosity, and that play with who you are. And it became something to you, and it was something interesting. It took out the fear of you didn't know that you were putting together molecules and having the structure and making sure that they're going the right way and all of those things. And so that's one of the things that I love about science is it opens the door with science fiction, and it helps people to walk in to science in a non-threatening way. And when you think about, okay, we're going to put people on a planet, they're going to be flying through space, there's going to be maybe, I don't know, there's some birds on there that are going to be attacking the people. Now they have something that they have to do. They have to hide from them. People can feel the emotion with those things, and it draws them in and gets them using the scientific process in their minds while they're not even realizing that they're doing it. So I love that ability to weave that storytelling in with science and science fiction, and I think that's one of the ways that is so compelling with really good storytellers.
Speaking of really good storytellers, looks deeply into camera, gazes strongly at guest.
And we have one with us right here. Her name is Holly Adams.
Well, I was talking about you, but so we got to hear a little bit about some of what you did for NPR. We'd love to hear more about that. But more importantly, okay, so this incredible thing that imagination and science fiction and science-adjacent imagining helps us enter the space of science with joy. You do, tell us about some of the things you're doing now. I mean, I love this STEM fashion, and the introduction, you're like, and I do space, and I do this, and I do this, and just share with us some of your favorite projects that are what we've just been talking about. That not gateway drug, but inviting portal to adventure that sparks curiosity in a way that is affirming for us to learn rather than being exclusive.
Absolutely. Yeah, my elevator speech of what I do is very long. We have a long elevator ride ahead of us. That's still something I'm working on.
Should I do an elevator music in the background?
Yeah, if you want. Exactly. So one of the things that I'm really leaning into in the last several years is STEM fashion. And so if you're not familiar with STEM, it's science, technology, engineering, and math. And when you bring in fashion, you might think, oh, well, why isn't it STEAM? Well, because STEM fashion just sounds cooler. We're going to cut to the chase, right? Because the art is there. The art is absolutely there. And what STEM fashion is is bringing technology in some capacity, whether you're 3D printing, whether you are bringing in LEDs or fiber optics or motion sensors somewhere into clothing or on your body. And when we talk about wearable tech, one of the first things I think people think of is the smartwatches or the smart rings, the different things that we have that can track our bodies and our body movements, and how far we have come from like go gadget to these being actually real, which I think is so crazy. Like you can have your pacemaker tied to your cell phone. Like, to me, right?
Yeah.
Right? I would be watching that all the time. I mean, it would be totally interesting.
100%. And I was going to say also the kind of, when I think of fashion technology in my brain, I also include like repurposing plastic to make those tiny, tiny, tiny filaments that makes it that you can weave together to make the Arctic wear.
Yeah.
That stuff that can keep you even warmer as a layer.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Like,
I love
like
that
so
stuff.
technology driven, but it's not like smartphones or whatever. It's just, but it is technology driven. It's science,
right?
And recycling and a happy marriage.
And there's so many layers to that. I just last week spent the week working with close to 200 ninth graders creating wearable tech items, and that was exhausting and a lot of fun at the same time. And so we took LEDs, and their challenge was to figure out what they wanted to do for a wearable. Did they want to put it in a headband? Did they want to make like a bracelet or a cuff? Did they want to make a pin? It was really neat to see their creativity of learning how to make a circuit, because that is basically the basic of it. And once you have that, you can light up anything.
Yeah, and LEDs, you can get them at like Michael's for $3 or whatever, a string or...
Yeah, so, and well, there's one specific that you can actually sew into clothes. They're NeoPixels. They're very bright, but they make it much easier than having to roll the leads of the regular LED, which you can totally do, because I do that as well. But then we have conductive thread, and that's like regular thread, but it has metal in it. So you sew just like with regular thread, but it's now conductive, which is a little challenging because you have to watch out for making shorts, right? You can't have your wires crossing or touching to keep your positive and your negatives apart from each other. So that's one of the things that we did with this group, and they are finishing up their projects this week. So I'm really excited to see some of the photos that are coming out of that. But the teacher that I was working with was thrilled to see how engaged her kids were, and she said some of them haven't been engaged with anything all year long. And this kind of just opened up their creativity and their curiosity, and allowed them to take their personality and apply it to this science concept. But the hook was either being fashionable or being wearable, or what can I make that's going to be cool that my friend also has, that we can somehow get them to go together. And it's that gateway, as you mentioned earlier, into this world that maybe people wouldn't really be interested in otherwise. There is a lot of computer programming that can go into wearable tech. And if that is the hook that gets you in, I love that. I love that for you.
Yeah. And also I think our culture suppresses a lot of people being supported in self-imagining as scientists. And your work subverts that, right? Your work provides a place where they can reimagine the self as a science person.
Yeah, definitely. I feel pretty strong about that. I think we beat it out of kids, their creativity and their imagination, because, they are learning to take an assessment test. And so everything is kind of focused on that. And instead of looking at those creative processes or the scientific and engineering processes that are a loop. It's not linear learning. And that fear of failure, the fear of how you're going to look to your peers or your colleagues, that is so incredibly stifling. And you don't even necessarily realize that that's happening. But you have a group full of ninth graders and you're asking questions, simple questions that they know the answers to. And either they're, timid to raise a hand or they're whispering their answers. I'm like, you were just in the hall screaming your lungs out at somebody. Like, I know that you can speak louder than that. So how do we create those safe spaces where people feel like they belong? And once we have that sense of belonging, that opens up that creativity, those juices of, I feel like I can share this or experiment here. And whatever is the outcome is just going to get me one step closer to where I want to be. And for myself personally, I dove into creating a whole STEM fashion outfit a couple years ago. There was a national fashion show, and I have, sewn since I was younger. I was in 4-H, and we did, fashion shows on the state level. And so I thought, well, why not throw my hat in the ring? Even though, like, I'm not a fashion designer by trade, by any sense of the imagination. I've always loved fashion. My dad would always yell at me, like, we're going to the store, like, just put something on, like, it's not a fashion show. I'm like, Dad, it's always a fashion show. Don't know who we're going to see. Always gotta, have a look. So now I can just have a fashion show everywhere I go, which is great. So I designed this dress that was fiber optics. The whole bottom skirt is fiber optics that kind of come out of the bottom near the back, and they just flow down as little pins of light as part of a galaxy theme. And I'm so proud of that dress, but also it wasn't scary when I was by myself designing and doing it. But when I got there and I'm like, okay, we're ready to walk the runway and here's your outfit. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is wild. There's people here who have their whole outfits that are 3D printed. And at that point, I hadn't really done much with 3D printing. So I was really intimidated once I got there. But then once the show started and our models all started walking and everyone showed off their amazing work. It was a great way to come together with people that work in those spaces, but everybody else was also new to STEM fashion. And while they were dabbling in it and trying different things, we were all coming together new as a group. And I did walk away with winning the top prize for that event, which was just the cherry on top for me. It was really, really amazing. And I try to wear that dress everywhere that I can go.
I think I've seen pictures of it on your Instagram.
Yes,
which is
at Nancy Coddington.
Could you spell that?
I can. It is NancyCoddington at Nancy Coddington, and that's all of my social handles are at Nancy Coddington.
On your social handles, is it against the school's protocol, or could we see some of the stuff that the ninth graders were making?
So, great question. I am putting together something that's going to go up on LinkedIn that talks a little bit more about the process and the education components to it. And then the person I worked with, Katie Perry, she teaches at Schenectady High School, and we are both part of the Science Teachers Association of New York State. We got a small grant to be able to buy some supplies to do this project. So we're going to be sharing that with our Stannis group. And then I will be putting some on social, but of course, not showing faces. And so we'll have the process of them going through. I'd like to have some more of the finished products before I do put that up. But yeah, stay tuned because that will be coming soon. Yeah, really proud of how they all rallied and came together to work on their projects.
I have a follow-up LinkedIn question. So when you post that on LinkedIn, is that something that people who are excited about this kind of a process can look at and get kind of a feel for, like, putting something together? And is that something that they could say, hey, I have this idea to you on LinkedIn once you post that article or post?
So the article was really going to kind of go through their story and where they were coming from and how they got where they are, probably with a few quotes from the students. But this is something that I consult with. So I went to her school and did this workshop as part of the work that I do.
For the teachers, or for, like, did you do a workshop with the teachers first or just the students after you met with the teachers?
So I actually do both. And in this sequence, though, my teacher she knows how to do wearable tech, but was looking for an expert to come in to work with her students. And so she was able to bring me in as a visiting artist and scientist kind of combo, which was great, check, to work with her students. And so I will work directly with youth to do a series workshop like this. And then I've also done this with educators many times and showing them how to do it. And so we model the process. How do you actually make the circuit? The teachers get to develop the design. I try to keep it a little less open-ended because of the time constraint with our educators. But I've done this nationally at an after-school program. I did that last year, leading into a conference at Boost out in California, which was very exciting. And I've done it several times across New York State as well. So I do quite a bit of work nationally with this kind of consulting and STEM education, but I always love to get into my backyard and work with our educators who are doing amazing, amazing things with kids.
I love that. And I'm starting to hear how, at least one way that that youth can have or grow a STEM identity. Can you talk a little bit more about STEM identity?
Yeah. I mean, Holly, have you ever walked into a room and felt like you didn't belong in that room?
Oh, pretty much every minute of my life.
I doubt that. But yeah, STEM identity is, again, looking at the sciences, the technology, engineering, and math, and seeing yourself belonging in those spaces. And a lot of people, when I had asked you the question before about the chemistry, when you were younger, when somebody talked about a science kid or somebody who was really good at math, like, what came to mind for you if I were to ask you that question?
Oh, 100%. They're white men. 100%.
Yeah, right? And can you identify with that? No, I can't. Right, so those were a lot of the role models or the people in science that are the posters on the wall at school. I mean, you've got Einstein, brilliant person, but again.
Yeah. I wanted to be an astronaut, and I was told point blank, no. When I was little. Just saying.
Yeah, and we want to change that. I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I was told, well, you're not really good at math, so maybe we should come up with something different for you.
Oh.
I know, right? So thinking about like where both of us could be. So STEM identity is helping people to realize that they do belong in these spaces because they are capable, they are curious, and you don't have to be a math whiz to belong in these spaces. And one of the things that I do with both youth and adult is going through how do we make the spaces that they belong, right? So having different images of scientists, astronauts, women astronauts, or women
BIPOC.
Absolutely. having
Especially
your classroom look like your students. So whatever your students are looking like, having that mix and representation is huge, because if you've never seen anybody that looks like you as an astronaut or a scientist or a marine biologist, why would you ever think that that would be for you? And then when working with students, like I remember, because I did struggle with math, and I'm sure nobody can probably relate to that. And as you're like doing your math quiz, there's somebody in the front of the class who always finishes like in like record time, and they like hand their paper in, and then you're panicking because they're done and you're on question 2. But you have no idea. They might have just wrote down random answers, right? They might not get any of them right, but you have no concept of that. And so the panic starts, and that fear starts, and that just continues to self-perpetuate. So how do we take experiences like that, but reward the perseverance? It's not that, oh, Holly, you're so good at math. Good job. You got that answer. It was, how did you get that answer? How did you get there? I liked the work that you put in, or how else can we figure out how to do the equation, and be able to praise people for the work ethic, the perseverance, that having that curiosity or thinking a different way, or when people are stepping out of that comfort zone of fear, being able to reward that. So having those small shifts in how we talk makes a huge difference and a huge impression with everybody in those spaces that you feel like you belong.
And I think we both feel that having that science fiction, especially in largely consumed forms of media, really, really helps a lot. Because you have, like, it's futuristic, but it's also cool. Who is this person that is the boss of this problem-solving apocalypse, and what do they need to do to figure out how to survive this mushroom contagion, or whatever. And I think that's a big piece of that. And certainly there have been brilliant books by all kinds of people, but like the Octavia Butlers of the world don't always get the attention that the other white men get. And I'm excited that there's been some shift in that. But yeah, even down to what books are on the shelf. If we're gonna read some sci-fi, what's actually in the classroom and available, or in the library and available, and who are we seeing, and how are they behaving in our movies and in our podcasts, and all of that. It's just so exciting as a way, to your point, to help people imagine themselves in a future, in a science future.
And I think science fiction does a really good job with that, because it taps into people's emotions. And when you can tap into people's emotions, then you can bring along the other stuff with it. But getting them having that vested buy-in first and making it relevant really is the crux of all of it.
Do you love the science in science fiction? For over 3 decades, Science Friday has been the ultimate audio map to that future. Every week, Science Friday brings you leading minds pushing the boundaries of what's possible. We break down mind-bending research and transform complex data into the pure joy of discovery. But we don't just broadcast the future, we actively build it. Sci-Fi also offers free educational resources for teachers, hosts live events, and brings together geek culture nationwide through the Science Friday Book Club. Because we are an independent nonprofit, we rely entirely on listeners to keep this journalism free and accessible to everyone. Help keep quality science on the air. Go to sciencefriday.com/donate or learn more at sciencefriday.com.
Okay, shifting gears. You get to choose between one of these 3 questions. What's something from science fiction that feels surprisingly close to reality now? Or what have you experienced firsthand that feels really futuristic? Or do you think the future is unfolding the way science fiction, of anybody's science fiction, because there is a lot, imagined it would?
Those are really good questions.
You have to pick one, because we're going to run out of time.
Okay. So I'm going to go with science fiction feeling surprisingly close to reality now. And so, yeah, certainly growing up, science fiction made us imagine such a dramatic, futuristic moments between flying cars and holograms and chrome cities. But the reality is, that has a lot of that has come true, but quietly. We carry around devices that we can have instant conversations around the world, not just, down the street. I grew up with like a party line phone. So to go from that, where you had multiple neighbors using the same phone, to talking to people globally. And I think artificial intelligence, that's very much science fiction, but it has absolutely crossed over that threshold. And now we're having very real conversations about machine learning and generative AI and automation, the ethics around that. And what does it mean when technology can imitate human communication and human creativity, right? And I'm sure that's right with the work that you do. It falls in there.
And I know that part of that conversation is the AI only generates from what it has predominantly sourced. So there are vast numbers of cultures that are not part of that large source material.
Huge.
And so, I mean, people are like, oh, it's just like a person. I'm like, well, actually, it's just like a white person, you know?
Very true.
It's like, and also, I mean, in the creative world, there's no way that the human mind is not more bizarre than deliciously so than an AI. But it's also can be a helpful tool. But so that, like, to your point, there's so much potential for support, you know, but also terrible things. And as we feel, we can't put it back in the box. It's not gonna happen. So
it's not.
Yeah.
So how can we use it in a way that's for the greater good?
And having people walking that line that you are so dedicated to, of having a safe space to imagine something new that isn't the same as with the way it's always been done, is crucial for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. And this is the part where, that science fiction and reality, the line is blurry, and which direction is going to be the greater of the two, because both directions are going to happen. It's already happening now, right? So how can we move that narrative towards that positive and, I guess, establish and make the rules? How do we become part of that so we can help drive that narrative in a way that's going to be beneficial?
I love that. I love that way of thinking about that. And also, I'm a space junkie. Can you talk about working around aerospace and NASA storytelling and all of the other nerdy space stuff?
So, my friends are like, oh, so you just got back from space. I'm like, yeah, I did.
Spill the tea, as we say in the Mysterious CHIRP.
Spill the tea. So I most recently was invited by NASA to attend something called a NASA Social. And that is where they have media and content creators come down for a launch. You come down a couple days beforehand, and they take you behind the scenes at NASA and pull back the curtain. And it's brilliant because it's all on your own dime. And but the stuff that you get to see and the people you get to meet, it's really incredible. So for the Artemis 2 that launched here on April 1st, I was able to go down, and the first day we walked through the VAB, or the Vehicle Assembly Building. That is that massive, huge building that housed Apollo, it had all of the shuttles, and now it has Artemis. And I got to see Artemis 3 they're starting the build already for that. They're well into the build for that already. And we saw new parts for Orion. So the next set of the Orion, they're going to look a little bit, the technology is going to be a little bit different than Orion 1 and 2, specifically the heat shields. And I got to talk to a friend of mine through all of this work. I'm lucky enough to call a friend at this point, but talking about the heat shield and what the heat shield's supposed to do, and hold one of the heat shields, which was amazing. So if you remember the shuttle program, and I mean, the shuttle program was the coolest, right? That was our era. And we had this shuttle, and then well, why don't they keep using that shuttle design? Because it was obviously so cool. And you could land it versus this capsule that plops down in the water and they have to go and get. But the design of the shuttle actually was incredibly dangerous because of where the astronauts sat on the side of that tank, the orange one with the liquid helium and liquid oxygen, which is really explosive. And so they walked such a dangerous line for catastrophe, and moving the astronauts back up to the top above all of that is really the safer option and the better design. So that was something really cool to learn about. And then in the space shuttle tiles, they were pretty thick and they're made out of mostly silica. Their job is to absorb heat and dispel that heat so that when the shuttle comes back into the atmosphere, that it doesn't burn up. And so with Orion, if you watched it come back through the atmosphere, and when they lost communications for 6 minutes and everybody was on pins and needles watching what was happening, it is wild to think that comes through the atmosphere. And when they do, it has to be at such precision, because if they dig too hard into the atmosphere and they come in too fast, it gets too hot. And that's not good. And then if they don't hit with quite the right trajectory, they actually bounce off of the atmosphere. And that's not good either. So the math precision is absolutely diabolical. And then it's 6 minutes through hotter than lava, the plasma that is created around Orion. And so those heat shield needs to be able to do something with all that heat, right? So part of it actually burns away. So that's a newer design feature. And then the tiles are much, much thicker than what was on the shuttle. And they have this cool honeycomb shape in them. When they hit a specific velocity, I think it's like 24,000 miles per hour, and a vacuum actually gets created within the tile. And that's how they keep the heat away from all of the people on the inside, and that they can survive coming through the atmosphere at those kinds of speeds. And then I know there was a lot of questions, people, well, how can they come through the atmosphere? And then the only thing that's going to have them land is, parachutes made out of nylon. That's a valid question. I get it. But coming through the atmosphere, they do slow down a lot. And if anybody says that you are like atmospheric drag, that's not a compliment. There's a lot of drag in the atmosphere, so that absolutely slows them down to enough of a point where once they deploy the parachutes, that it slows Orion down, comes down very gently and plops into the water. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing being there, being part of history, watching the astronauts come out, do their walk. They drove right by us, and then to watch them, launch on Artemis and make that trek was phenomenal, to be a tiny piece of that history and to watch it unfold in real time. And I'm excited because with so many people and so many eyes on what happened, it also opens the door to, hey, that looks really cool. I want to go do that job. I want to be part of that. And you don't have to be an astronaut. There's 4 astronauts, but the amount of people that were part of the project, thousands and thousands of people, had to come together and all did a piece of this job to make it successful. And without all of them, it wouldn't have been the success that it was. And I know all of those teams were watching with bated breath every single piece of this project, because when it got to a certain point, it was like, oh, that's the part I worked on. So let's make sure watching, yep, it went right. Yes, we did our job. And that was phenomenal to see the pride and the joy, and to see all of the science play out was absolutely a beautiful thing.
And some people are like, well, why do we need space? And it's like, well, do you have a cell phone? Do we have like weather predictors that help save lives? That's all that is a result of space and stuff.
And yeah, so technology, huge pieces of technology are part of that. Well, then another question that comes up often is like, well, NASA, they should just let SpaceX and Boeing take over. There have always been partnerships with private industry. Lockheed Martin and Boeing have been around doing space things hand in hand with NASA for decades.
Yeah, I was going to say, pretty sure Lockheed Martin was with NASA in a different capacity, obviously, during the Second World War.
Yeah, and it continues that Lockheed Martin employees are in the vehicle assembly building. They are working on Orion. That's actually who's making and creating pieces of that. So they are hand in hand. And so that trading of information and building upon it is crucial to have those collaborations and those partnerships. You can't go or do these things alone.
Sadly, we are running out of time. So, personal questions. Do you have a favorite sci-fi movie or show or book? And it could be something that is your current favorite, like, oh, this is what it is today. Or it could be like, this is my favorite from all times.
Well, I think my favorite of all times is absolutely a classic, would be The Twilight Zone. I mean, The Twilight Zone was so fascinating, not only because it was from around the area that I grew up, but the way that the storylines that were tackled and addressed were really echoing what was happening in the world without addressing what was happening in the world. So they were taking those themes and bringing them to the forefront and having science fiction kind of be the cover, if you will, to explore all those different topics. And I think that is just brilliant and highly entertaining. And then I think currently I have been watching The Black Mirror, just starting to get into that, which it's been out for a while. So I'm pretty excited to dive into that. And then I think one more that I found really interesting was The Man in the High Castle. Did you?
No, I don't know that one.
So the Man in the High Castle would be, what if the United States did not win World War II? What if it was Germany and Japan that won? What would it look like differently in the United States? And it's a pretty interesting series. So I recommend that.
I think you would like For All Mankind.
I'm
Similar but different.
Yeah.
All right. Last question before we say farewell to the incredible Nancy Coddington, STEM artesian. Do you have a favorite moment or character from the Mysterious CHIRP?
Oh my goodness. I love Raven.
You are not alone. Many people love the sassy, not what people expect from a ship's intelligence system. See, there's that AI. There it is. It shows back up again. But yeah, and Raven has this great voice. And yeah, I do like the sassy part of Raven. So see, there's that relevance. There's that connection. I'm going to give a little reveal right now. So if you've made it this far, you're going to know something before everyone else. You know how between the seasons we alternate between interviews with amazing people, like Nancy Coddington, and standalone adventures? The December standalone adventure features Raven.
Ooh.
So the last episode of season 2, which will be episode 6, which drops June 4th, we end on a cliffhanger. And Raven is not okay.
Oh.
And then season 3 picks up right where we left off. And Raven's adventure happens because they are AI, kind of in that in-between moment.
That's kind of perfect, though, for AI.
I know.
Yeah, in between. And so, yeah, if you listen to the story, you get the Easter egg. I love that.
It's so exciting. Anyway, I have to say, fare thee well, Nancy. I want people to follow you. So can you tell us again one more time how people can look you up and be your fan?
Yeah, you can follow me on most social media platforms at Nancy Coddington, NancyCoddington, or you can follow me at my website, which is scicomsolutions.com.
And that's com with 2 M's, by the way.
And
Sci like science, com, COMM like communications.
And those are
Solutions.
the main channels that you can find me on. Hallie, thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely a delight. I'm honored to be on In Between the Seasons, so thank you.
Thank you. And journey on, friends.
You can learn more about Nancy Scales Coddington at their website, SciCommSolutions.com. To listen again to this fabulous interview or hear any of the Mysterious Chirp episodes, head to our YouTube page or our website, themysteriouschirp.com. You can also listen anywhere else you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. Thank you for listening, Terrence.